Hi, this is Hot Tize. Today we're making a funky pop beat inspired by Bruno Mars. In this video, I break down how to build a groove, add funky guitars and synths, shape the melody, and turn everything into a full arrangement. Let's start with a short teaser. The first thing we work on is the drum pattern. I set the tempo to 108. For the drums, I use samples from the legendary Lindrum drum machine. Let's quickly listen to the sounds we're using. We have a kick, a snare, a clap, a closed hi-hat, an open hi-hat, another closed hi-hat, and a cowbell. I also add a flexitone sample, and I use a vinyl scratch sample as well. This is the drum pattern I recorded. Let's listen to it. For processing, I use a glue compressor to make the drums sound together. It's a standard Ableton plugin. To avoid any unwanted distortion, I also add FreeClip, which is a free limiter that helps control the levels. At the end, I slightly adjust the tone of the drums using an EQ. Now let's move on to the chords. For the chord part, I use a MIDI progression from my Platinum Touch MIDI pack. It includes over 150 MIDI progressions designed to spark ideas and works great for genres like pop, R&B, funk, and more. For the chord sound, I use the Serum synth. Then I do some light EQ. I cut the unnecessary low and high frequencies, and I also reduce the mid signal around 950 Hz to leave more space for vocals later on. Now let's listen to how the chord part sounds. Now we move on to creating the bass. In this beat, the bass plays not only a rhythmic role, but also a melodic one. Since the chord part is quite choppy, the bass fills the spaces between the chords, adding movement and connecting the harmony. For the bass sound, I use Reactor with this preset. Then I use EQ to shape the tone of the bass, so it fits better in the beat. At the end, I apply sidechain compression. I use the kick as the sidechain source to avoid any conflict between the kick and the bass, and to add extra dynamics to the bass line. To highlight the fill in the second part of the loop, I add this element to the bass. It's a bass slide, where notes from the scale play one after another, creating a smooth sliding effect and extra movement. Now let's listen to how everything sounds with the drums. Now let's add guitars to the beat. The first guitar is a funk rhythm guitar. For this, I use the Electric Mint library for contact. This is how the guitar sounds. After that, I convert the part to audio and make a few small edits, so it fits the groove of the beat better. Then I add an EQ. I cut the unnecessary low frequencies and slightly boost around 1.5 kHz to improve clarity. And this is how the guitar sounds in the end. Next, I add a guitar lick to the beat. For this, I use the same contact library, Electric Mint. I recorded this guitar lick. For convenience, I convert the part to audio. Then I add an EQ, cutting the unnecessary low frequencies and slightly boosting around 1600 Hz to improve clarity. And this is how everything sounds with the guitars. Next, I add an arpeggio synth to the beat. It adds melody and fills the empty spaces in the arrangement, especially in the parts where the chords drop out. This helps the beat feel more complete and flowing. For this sound, I use Silent One. It's a great synth for achieving a vintage analog style sound. Then I add an EQ to shape the sound of the synth. After that, I use Wider to make it sound wider. Next, I add Valhalla Vintage Verb to give the synth more space. At the end, I use an auto filter for additional low-end control, and this is how it sounds in the context of the beat. To highlight the chords and add some melody to the beat, I add a bells part. The part is very simple. For the sound, I use Serum. Then I add an EQ to slightly shape the tone of the bells and help them sit better in the mix. And this is how it sounds in context. As a final touch, I add a synth stab to give the beat a more funky feel. For this sound, I use Silent One. Then I add a chorus to make it feel wider and more full. After that, I use an EQ to remove the unnecessary low frequencies. One of the key tricks here is automating the mod wheel. This is how the sound plays without automation. And this is how it sounds with it. Now let's listen to how everything sounds together. For the arrangement, I use a short intro. Then I go straight into the chorus, but in a lighter version without the bells part. After that comes the verse, followed by the next chorus, where all the elements play together, including the bells and everything else. Now let's listen to the final beat. That is it for this video. Thanks for watching. You can listen to the full beat via the link in the description. If you have any questions or thoughts, feel free to leave a comment. I'm happy to read them and give feedback. See you in the next video.